And we are live.
Good morning, everybody, and a happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners south of the border. I hope your day is full of tasty turkey and lots of gravy for the mashed potatoes. I am your host, Greg the Hold. We are here with another episode of Grounds for Development on this Happy Turkey Day, and I am joined as always by my good friend and co-host Biff Kensington down across the border. How's your Thanksgiving going so far, Biff?
Oh, it's my favorite day of the year. Basically a tribute to gluttony and football and all sorts of laziness. It's the patron saint of laziness, and my sloth is my spirit animal. So this is just the absolute best time of year. Thank you so much for sacrificing your ordinary Thursday for our special Thursday. We'll have to work on that dual Thanksgiving celebrations over the next couple of years. So
I'll send a text to Justin, and we're tight. We'll work something out.
I'll go talk with the Donald, and we'll get it all squared away. So as the resident crazy person in cage side seats, I've got a front row seat to the White House press briefings. So
your pass didn't get revoked.
no, unlike Acosta, I kiss ass like the best of them. So
There you go. We have ourselves a fun episode to talk about here. I think we're probably going to change things up a little from the usual norm, and we're going to just more or less talk about the wonderful NXT Takeover special that we had. I'm not going to go on record and say it's the best Takeover special of all time, but it is definitely a contender. It's a worthy addition to the amazingly wonderful series that Takeovers have been putting out. And lots of good stuff to talk about, and we're going to dive right in there.
yeah, it was an amazing show to be certain, and it's really funny. You sit there and you look at this show when you got done watching it, and you're trying to think to yourself, is it the best I've ever seen? It could be. It's in the contention. But you could even say that about, is it the best takeover you've seen this year? Because it feels like there's more than one contender from 2018 for best takeover. And I think that's what makes these events so special. Even though they can blend together, they're blending together at a very high quality. And you're not ever kind of sleepwalking through. Even the subpar takeovers wind up being very fun shows. And this was far from being subpar.
No, this was an extremely excellent show. Uh, Even the weakest match, I mean, we had one little starting match that isn't really a match, and I would probably consider the women's title match the weakest match on this card. And honestly, if you had put that women's title match on pretty much any of the main roster shows this year, it would have been the match of the night. So that says something about the quality that takeovers are putting out these days.
Yeah, it's remarkable the level of success that they're able to pump out consistently, and they have a favorable setup that allows them to do this. But even with the setup, to constantly knock each of these shows out of the park time after time after time, it's a real testament to the crew they have down there in Florida, working with these people, getting them ready for the big time, kind of prepping them for the life on the road, so to speak. It's a big jump to go from working the buttermilk runs in Florida to going to these big arenas. With all due respect to Largo, Florida, or Full Sail, or Daytona, it's one thing to work the Ocean Pavilion in Daytona Beach, Florida, population 2,200 people, versus going to the Staples Center, population 18,000. It's a huge jump. And with all of the eyes on you, takeover weekend, the crew delivers, and they consistently deliver. And we're not just talking about fun shows. We're talking about shows that are all timers. It's just amazing the amount of quality that you get out of these. And like you said, the women's title match was definitely Of the main 4 matches, we can't even include the Riddle and Ono. That was almost a segment versus a match. The women's title match was by far the weakest, and it was the quickest of the 4 matches. But that match was still very fun while it lasted, and it would have held up very well on the main roster compared to what we've seen out of the Raw and SmackDown brands in 2018. So even the weaknesses of NXT are a relative strength compared to some of the competition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, we may as well dive right into the Takeover special, and we'll touch on Survivor Series a little bit too, and the cruiserweight title match, which once again, in my opinion, was, if not the best match on the card, it was right up there in contention. So kudos to those guys for taking the time that they got and absolutely running with it. And hopefully it brings some more eyes to 205 Live, because God knows that show is one of the best weekly shows out there under the WWE umbrella anyways, and deserves all the eyeballs on it that it can possibly get.
Absolutely. There's just so much to unpack here. That cruiserweight title match was it probably was the best pure match of the night, and it was definitely one of the most fun. So but yeah, between Takeover and the cruiserweight title match, and some of the other matches on Survivor Series itself wasn't a bad card this year. The booking was a little questionable at times, I thought, but overall, it was one of the best weekends of wrestling we've seen in quite a long time, actually, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. As a fan, I definitely wasn't disappointed. So that's all you can ask for, really.
Agreed. And, and we could start off with the NXT Women's Championship match, because, like you said, even as the weakest match on the TakeOver card, the weakest full match, we'll say, it still delivered. And I think it delivered in a sense because not only did it provide kind of a fast-paced match, they didn't last long enough to drag. And there was things going on constantly that kept the viewer engaged. But it also started to establish some of the players that we'll see in the future. Jessamine Duke, Marina Shafir, Io Shirai with that gorgeous moonsault, putting everybody to shame with that moonsault to the outside.
Yeah, in street clothes, skinny jeans for gosh sake, and boots. Like, wow, that was incredible.
She is absolutely, without a doubt, the best women's worker in the world. And she's probably top 5, top 10 overall worker in the world to boot. Which, we're seeing this continual evolution of women's wrestling across the board, not just here in North America, but in Japan as well. And in Australia, especially. The Australian women's scene right now is one of the most robust in the entire planet. They're pumping out talent from Australia, New Zealand at a ridiculous rate right now. But, you're seeing women's wrestling. It's not only evolving into this, super athletic, highly entertaining, in-ring product, but it's also matching the men. The women are doing just as much as the men are these days. And so, whereas in the past, the top women's worker in the world may have been top 50, top 100, it is absolutely not a knock to say that Io Shirai is one of the top 10 best workers in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
We can even extrapolate that into popularity. I mean, it is arguable that the most popular performer in WWE right now throughout their entire system is a woman. Because God knows we're all worshiping at the altar of Becky Lynch right now. Anyone that's sane. Sorry, Crash, but it's an amazing time for women's wrestling. And this, 2 out of 3 falls match. No, it wasn't the best match between Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler, but it was still an entertaining match while it lasted, and that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know that these two women can have a bad match together. And this was a nice continuation, kind of the story that they've been telling through their series of matches. and it was good. I loved how it started with Kyrie coming out just aggressive as all get out, just trying to put it to Baszler and really doing it. And there was some pretty insane spots on there. That stuff on the apron, geez, like wow.
I know. Yeah, that I my jaw hit the floor. I honestly, it reminded me of Sami Zayn and his old brain busters on the top turnbuckle, except replacing the top turnbuckle with the apron. It was brutal. I thought Shayna was sleeping permanently. I thought her lights were out. Because that's the hardest part of the ring, They'll never let you forget it. But yeah, that was vicious. The Io Shirai, we talked about the moonsault in the denim pants there. That was just insane. I liked the finish. I thought that the finish of the actual match itself, the third deciding fall, was kind of inventive. Kind of came out of nowhere, and it did a good job, I think, of protecting both performers, because it wasn't so fluky that it disappointed you, but it was fluky enough to make you think, Kairi Sane has still got a shot one day to recapture that title, whether she ever captures it again or not. She's still going to be in the mix, but it doesn't diminish Shayna Baszler at all. It makes her look like a really smart wrestler.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a great finish. I thought they told the story well, and with Shayna relying on her cronies to kind of pick up the wins for her, because Kairi's just coming out and showing that possibly she's the better wrestler, the better woman. So the storyline is definitely progressing nicely. I kind of looking forward to seeing what they do with this, if they come up with the 6 women tag, where this story's going. Because obviously Dakota Kai's involved in this mix. She's had her issues with Baszler in the past. And honestly, we kind of need to see where the other 2 horsewomen are with Jessamine Duke and Maria Shafir. By all accounts, they've been doing well in the house circuit, but we haven't really seen anything beyond these couple little interferences in Evolution and this takeover. So I'm curious to see what they look like in the ring and where the storyline takes us.
Yeah, if they have any semblance of ring psychology down pat, if they're able to supplement their natural athleticism, I mean, because both are coming from the MMA background, it's good, because that gives, I think personally, people coming from an MMA background have a leg up on people from a football or a gymnastics background, because at least in the MMA game, there's a focus on cardio, there's a focus on footwork, and so you have an easier transition. I think that's why Ronda Rousey picked it up so well in the main roster, and I think it's why Shayna Baszler has become so talented in such a short amount of time in the business. Shayna had some great trainers too. Let's not discount the work that Mercedes Martinez and Billy Robinson did. But I think, if they have, any kind of talent in them, then just Shayna's work alone will make the unit work. And we know the babyface side can go. I mean, we're talking about, we just mentioned Io Shirai, one of the best workers in the world, probably the best female pound for pound alive. Kairi Sane is not far behind her in that list. Kairi Sane is definitely a top 5, top 10 type worker in the world. And she probably is better than Shayna Baszler. I mean, that may very well be the story that's being told here. We'll have to see it play out. Dakota Kai, you know what? I'm a huge Dakota Kai fan. I kind of feel like she's a better version of Bayley. She's got a lot of promise. I mean, she's still developing her craft. I don't think she's there yet, but she's absolutely one of the best workers in NXT right now. And so on the babyface side, there's really no ambiguity. That side is ready to rock and roll. If the heels can hold up even a fraction of their end, The matches should be fantastic. And there's plenty of talent waiting behind. You've got Lacey Evans, Bianca Belair, Nikki Cross still kicking around down in NXT. She's not going anywhere yet. Pretty soon, hopefully, you'll have Tegan Knox back. And then you always have the possibility for some crossover with people like Toni Storm or Jenny coming over, or Rhea Ripley, for that matter, from NXT UK. It's an exciting time to be a fan of women's wrestling in NXT because there's so many possibilities, coming in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely, and even just touching on like what you were saying, that NXT UK women's division right now, but there's only the 9 women in there. But tell me that is not a stacked division, and they're all in their 20s for the most part. Like, we've got a bright future ahead in women's wrestling for sure. And then Shayna Baszler, she has got this heel shtick down perfectly. Like, she is the best women's heel in the company right now. She's slimy. She's brutal. She's vicious. Even in the little backstage interviews, she's like condescending. She does it all. So, I mean, continue developing her in-ring work, which really is pretty spot on right now, but she could definitely improve a little bit. And you've got yourself a excellent heel going forward for the foreseeable future here.
In a world where Tommaso Ciampa didn't exist, Shayna Baszler would be the best heel in NXT, bar none. I mean, I can't in good conscience put her ahead of Tommaso Ciampa, because I once said, and I was only half joking, that Tommaso Ciampa, had he come around in 1985 Mid-South, would have needed the Louisiana National Guard to get around safely. That's how much heat he was drawing earlier this year. But Shayna Baszler has been right on his heels. I mean, she's got that greasy, evil, malicious, bully heel character down pat, where she just revels in snapping fingers and busted up elbows. And you know what? That kind of heel will always have a place in wrestling. There's been a preponderance of these chicken feed heels that, they'll fight and then they'll run away like cowards. Not everyone can play like The Miz. The Miz is a great example. He talks a big game, but he's always going to run away from the fight if he has that option. Shayna Baszler is the kind of heel that's going to stand there and just beat the snot out of you. If you want to take her down, you come at the queen, you better not miss. It's just fantastic character work. It's a fantastic in-ring presence. She looks like $1 million. She looks like the alpha queen that you've got to take down. She looks like a final boss in a video game. That's the best way I could compare her to right now. And so, you know what? Whether it's Kairi Sane getting one more crack at it, this series of matches have been so good, I wouldn't mind another Kairi Sane title match. I don't know that I would do it at TakeOver in Phoenix in January, but maybe we get Shayna Baszler and Io Shirai, or Dakota Kai. We don't know. There's all sorts of possibilities out there. But whatever they go with, I think it's going to be a fantastic match, because Shayna Baszler could definitely hold up her end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that basically covers the women's title match. Like we said, weakest match on the card, and we were just gushing about it. So if that's the weakest match on the card, buckle up, folks. We have got some doozies coming up here. Next match, we had the grudge match between Aleister Black and Johnny Gargano. The payoff to the months-long build of who attacked Aleister Black. This match delivered in a huge way. I was kind of worried that maybe it might not meet the expectations that I had for it, but this was possibly the match of the night for me. And that's saying something, because the new 2 matches that follow it, honestly, depending on the day or even the hour since TakeOver, it's been flip-flopping for me which match was the best of the night. So this one is definitely a contender for sure.
Well, I would say hindsight being 2020, you definitely didn't have to worry about this match living up to expectations. It took those expectations and it launched them into the upper troposphere. So, you know what I love about these last three matches, and I'll lay this out there, and then I'll focus in on Gargano and Black, which pound for pound, it might have been the match of the night. It could be the match of the night, and I would not argue with you one bit about it. What I loved about these final three matches, it represented a dichotomy of styles. This match represented NXT at its finest. This was a true NXT style match. The classic NXT, last man standing is just going to dominate, and it's going to be, the best man win. That fighting spirit, very much old school mentality about it, kind of mixed in with, the new school Japanese strong style. They're going to beat the piss out of each other, and whoever's got enough intestinal fortitude is going to carry the day. I love that about NXT. That's been a pervasive style in NXT since 2014, really, when Neville won the title. And he kind of infused that style. And a lot of the champions that have followed Neville have kind of carried that tradition on. And so Gargano and Black, just a wonderful match, tremendous in the NXT style. Then you turn around and you have Velveteen Dream and Tommaso Ciampa, who are really wrestling a WWE main event style. That was very much a main roster style match. Doesn't diminish that match in the slightest. I personally have been leaning more towards that match as being the match of the night. But we're talking razor thin margins here. So it was interesting how you had a dichotomy between a classic NXT style match and a classic WWE main roster style match. And then War Games was your car crash. It was your bodies flying everywhere. It was your maelstrom. Just complete chaos, which is the hallmark of War Games or the Rumbles or any type of multi-person match where you've just got mayhem going down all over the place. You had three distinct styles, and each style complemented the other perfectly. It's so easy to have these matches that just leave you exhausted emotionally as a fan. It is the hardest thing in the world. I don't think people appreciate how hard this is to keep fan investment up when you have these all-time great matches. Like, you sit there and you watch WrestleMania 3, and you watch Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage wrestle for the 25, 30 minutes, however long that match was. By the time you're done with that match, you needed a Honky Tonk Man versus Jake the Snake and a Bolsheviks versus, or not Bolsheviks, Nikolai Volkov and Iron Sheik versus Killer Bees match before you get to the main event. You needed the cool-down matches just to recover. You needed that moment just to sit there and bask in the afterglow of these matches to fully appreciate, what you saw. You didn't get that on Saturday. It was, you like this 4.5-star match between Black and Gargano? Well, here comes another 4-star match with, Ciampa and Velveteen Dream. And then, by the way, we got another 4-star match coming after that, War Games. So the last 2 hours of that show was like nothing but snowflakes. I mean, Dave Meltzer was having a coronary by the time it was all said and done. It's just such a testament to how great the brand is. And a lot of that's presentation. Mauro Ranallo, Nigel McGuinness, and even Percy, they don't get enough credit because they keep you invested all the way through. Their energy is palpable, and it pumps you up. Because I know as soon as that War Games match ended, my jaw was just kind of on my chest. And I was just kind of sitting there, just like taking it in, like, ah. But I was just the same after the Velveteen Dream Ciampa match. I literally said holy shit about 15 times during that NXT title match. And poor Johnny Gargano, meeting, just the brutal end in this match. It was just fantastic storytelling. I think that Aleister Black, when he does go up, he's going to make the company a lot of money because he has a certain intangible quality about him. He can tell a story in the ring like no one's business. I was very impressed with him. Johnny Gargano continues to be, I think, the MVP of the brand. Whatever role they put him in, he just seems to flourish right now. So yeah, I have absolutely no problem with people that consider Gargano versus Black the match of the night. It is such a razor-thin margin. It really comes down to personal taste. Do you like chocolate ice cream or vanilla or strawberry? Whatever your flavor is, you got it on this show. So you can't have
exactly that. And as far as I'm concerned, just give me a mix of it all, because man, these last three matches were just wow. Like, I haven't smoked for years and I wanted a cigarette after that. Like, holy cow, was that good wrestling.
Oh, you too. That was me. I was sitting there like, damn, I wish I had a cigar handy right now. I'd just sit here and just, contemplate the meaning of life in these matches. And
I was like literally speechless. I was just kind of like, wow. Like, and I'm still kind of that way, and it's been days afterwards. But yeah, the end of that Gargano Black match with the Black Mass, and then Aleister picking him back up with his foot and bringing him up, and I absolve you of your sins, and putting him right back down again. Chills.
Badass.
Chills up and down the spine. Oh, there could not have been a more perfect ending to that match. And throughout the whole thing, you kind of had no idea which way it was going to go. I know that we had all predicted Aleister Black on our prediction show that he was going to pick up the win, and sure enough, he did. But they did a great job throughout that whole thing of making it look like Gargano might steal it out from under Black. The reversals that they had, some of the spots that they did in that match, just unbelievable. And you were right. It was pretty much the epitome of an NXT main event match. And that's not a bad thing at all. So beautiful match. Definitely, if you guys haven't seen Takeover yet, stop what you're doing right now. Before you hit the turkey, go have yourself a couple hours of just pure wrestling ecstasy. That's about all I can say about this special. It's amazing.
Yeah, I could absolutely see myself passed out with a drumstick in one hand and my hand on the PS4 controller, watching the WWE Network later. That sounds like an excellent idea for a post-football relaxation session. Yeah, that was tremendous. The appeal of the end of the match. Each of the three matches had fantastic endings. This was the badass last stand. Aleister Black just being a complete and utter jewel in the ring. It was amazing. And then you had in the NXT title match, that Scuzz bucket, Tommaso Ciampa slapping Mauro Ranallo. And then Velveteen Dream, doing that little DDT maneuver onto the concrete. And he throws him into the ring. And he's flying up the corner, turnbuckles. And he's going to hit that elbow. And he connects. And you're like, oh my God, he's going to win the NXT title. And they've got you hooked. And he kicks out. But he's not stopping. And now Black, Ciampa's trying to get out of the ring. And so Velveteen Dream's going to go up and he's going to deliver an elbow drop onto the apron. And they got you again. And you're like, if he hits this, it's got to be over. And then he misses and you're like, it is over. It was building and building and building. The last 5 minutes of Ciampa and Dream, coupled with the last 5 minutes of Aleister Black and Johnny Gargano, that just those 10 minutes alone embody why I'm a wrestling fan. Because they both told unique stories that had the same result. My jaw on the floor with a smile a mile wide plastered on my face. No talking, not making any noise, just sitting there with a smile, the goofiest goober on the planet. I'm just sitting there basking in the glory of those two matches. And then poor Adam Cole died for my sins in War Games, and I was equally as enthused, taking Pete Dunne's finisher and then getting splatted with the 450 out of nowhere. Ricochet just comes flying into the camera view and just splats him. And they both cover him, and he's just laid out like he's recovering from a night in Bangkok. It's amazing. It was just such a beautiful night of wrestling.
Absolutely. And go ahead.
No, I'm sitting here. I'm just like, oh, basking in the remembrance of it is almost as fun.
Oh, totally. And another thing I loved about both the Gargano Black and Dream Ciampa matches is just the little teases that they provided with the two rings. Just the little teases of stuff you knew was going to come up later on. Like the end of the Dream Ciampa match with the DDT on the middle part of the ring there. It was just nice little lead-ins to the main event that we were coming up to. But going into the Ciampa Dream match, can we just touch on the brilliance that is Velveteen Dream and coming out in the Hollywood Hulk Hogan getup, mocking and kind of stealing all of Hogan's signature spots. I was unbelievable.
I was rolling.
It was
so great.
Brilliant. And even doing the Hulk up later on in the match and the whole thing with the headband. Just pure brilliance. If he
had pinned Ciampa off of that third leg drop, I'm half convinced the roof would have blown off the Staples Center. Like they had to have Ciampa kick out just to keep the building from imploding in on itself. Velveteen, oh my God, this was. I can't say it was a star-making performance because I feel like he had that last year with Aleister Black. That was really the match where everybody kind of set up and like, okay, this guy, he's the future. This was exactly what I had hoped it would be last week when we were talking with Adam on our preview show. I wanted this to mark the transition where Velveteen Dream went from a promising talent with a big future to a guy that could be a main eventer in NXT or beyond and not feel out of place. And after this match, he is a made-for-life main eventer in NXT, if nothing else. You can put him back in another title match, and it would not feel out of place. Like, he's made it. He has reached the top of the mountain. He's now a main event talent. And I think, the natural progression watching him go from a flamboyant character that shouldn't have worked all the way to being one of the most organically over acts in NXT, which in and of itself is the most popular brand in the WWE system right now. It's just fantastic. It's fantastic because it shows you, what? The system can work. Patrick Clark, the man behind Velveteen Dream, he is a testament to the system doing its job. It made a star. And now he's 23 years old. He could carry NXT tomorrow and not be out of place. You've got him set up for another 10 to 15 year run of making this company a lot of money on every level. It's just so fantastic to watch. You're seeing the future with Velveteen Dream. That guy is the future. If he doesn't win a world championship, everybody in this company needs to be freaking fired because they screwed the pooch in the most egregious way possible. I'll put it that way.
And I'll totally agree with you on that. And you can just tell, if you had watched the Tough Enough series that he was on, you could tell that he was a student of the history of the game. But just even with the callbacks, let alone the Hogan stuff, the callback to the Bret Hart, the figure four around the ring post, just stuff like that. Just that he's a student of the game, that he loves the history, that he's showing respect to the amazing performers that came ahead of him. And you're absolutely right. He totally solidified himself as at least an NXT main event player. I think he can do something on the main roster as well once he gets the call up. I'm a little leery, of course, that they're going to screw that up. But we always feel that way. And especially when they're some of our favorite performers, we just want to see them succeed. He should and totally should be a world universal champion, whatever the case may be. He's got all the talent. He, like you said, kid's only 23 years old. Like, he's got an amazingly bright future ahead of him. And then you've also got Tommaso Ciampa in this match, who, like you said, with the Mauro Ranallo thing, the selling of his ankle, the taking off of the boot, just like all the little heel touches that he puts into his craft. And his social media game is probably only second to the man's right now. Becky Lynch, I mean, is on another level. She is beyond.
She's god tier. Let's like Tommaso Ciampa is like Old Testament prophet, whereas Becky Lynch has reached the throne room and is sitting at the left hand of God beside the Son and the Holy Spirit, and then there's the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit at the top, and then the man at the footstool, and then Ciampa is calling down fire on his tweets from heaven. You can tell I've got some Old Testament Bible study coming out here, but just amazing. Tommaso Ciampa. Yeah, we gushed over Velveteen Dream. That's how good this match was. We gushed over Velveteen Dream for 10 minutes before we even got to Ciampa. And Ciampa is just a freaking fantastic worker. I honestly, if it weren't for the desire of Triple H and the people running NXT to have those big moments, I would say, they need to get the title off of Ciampa in the next taping cycle and then get him up to the main roster, because they desperately need talent on the main roster. They need an infusion of new, fresh talent. And that's really where Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, that's where they belong. You could cycle them out with Lars Sullivan and EC3, and you can turn over NXT to your Bianca Belairs and your Velveteen Dreams, the Undisputed Era, Only Lorcan, and Danny Burch, the Street Profits. You've got an entire crew of talent that could cycle up. The Mighty Don't Kneel, Heavy Machinery. There's just so much talent. And the War Raiders. Can't forget the War Raiders. They could easily just slot into that top babyface tag team role if they're not there already, I mean, there's just so much talent you could pull up from NXT to help the main roster, and NXT would still have bukus of talent. Because, oh, by the way, here comes Matt Riddle, and here comes Keith Lee, and oh yeah, ACH may be on the way in, and they're talking to people over in Japan like Tetsuya Naito and Will Ospreay. So, I mean, Jesus, there's just so much glorious talent in this system right now. To say nothing of NXT UK and their own little treasure trove of wonders. It's the greatest time, man. It is the absolute greatest time. Tommaso Ciampa absolutely has surpassed Joe and Bobby Roode, I believe, as the best heel champion in the history of the NXT brand. I think we can make that call just by virtue of how strong a heel he is and the heel work he's done in 2018, even building up to the championship run. Tommaso Ciampa is the best heel champion they've ever had. And that puts him in elite company when you consider Bobby Roode's run and Samoa Joe's run. So, I mean, kudos to him. Tommaso Ciampa, you, sir, are a national treasure.
Absolutely. We've said it a million times. I'm a huge mark for Tommaso Ciampa, and I agree with you. Like, I think he is hands down the best heel champ, and arguably probably in the top 3 best champs period in my books that NXT has ever had. The man is amazing. I want to order a T-shirt. I want to order all the T-shirts. It's like I just want to walk around and be a walking billboard for the greatness that is Tommaso Ciampa. And I don't. I'm not usually a guy that goes out and wants to buy too many shirts. I mean, I want to support all my wrestlers. I buy my son the action figures, all that kind of stuff. Back before the network was around, I used to buy all the videotapes or the DVDs. This is the first time that I have like just been drooling over wanting a particular wrestler's T-shirt. So that says a lot coming from me. So, Ciampa, you have earned my respect.
We have the Mutual Admiration Society going on here. I'll second that. I'll be right behind you in line. It's so cool because there is a performer on each brand, like each show of the company, whether it's NXT, NXT UK, 205 Live, SmackDown, or Raw. Each show has a performer that has reached that level with me right now. Like, by way of example, I watch SmackDown. I'm a fan of Andrade Cien Almas. I take him near the top of every fantasy draft I've done in the last 2 months. But I am a complete and utter tool for Becky Lynch right now. Like, Becky Lynch, I check her Twitter feed at least twice a day just to see if Our Lady of Dublin has bequeathed us another gem on social media. No, I don't know if she's from Dublin or not. I can't remember. It's too late. I can't remember. But you get what I'm saying. Becky Lynch, I would buy her merch in a New York minute. If she ever retweeted me, even to call me a neckbeard, which is ironic because I don't wear a beard normally, but you know what? I would gladly grow a Chernobyl-style patchy beard just for her, just so that I could make her truthful. And I'd be a neckbeard for her, okay? I like that with Becky Lynch on SmackDown. Tommaso Ciampa and Velveteen Dream have both reached that level for me now on NXT. I am one of the biggest Rhea Ripley fans in the world and one of the biggest Pete Dunne fans in the world. I have 2 people like that in NXT UK. I've got 3 people like that on 205 Live. The triple threat, I've come to call them this year. Buddy Murphy, I would buy his gear. Mustafa Ali, I'd buy his gear. And Lord knows I would support my boy Cedric Alexander. Cedric, like, I would go to war with Cedric Alexander. Okay? I would be in the trenches right beside that man. I mean, I've got his back through hell in a gasoline suit. And then, you know what? I am still a huge Seth Rollins fan on Raw. I still like Chad Gable. There's just a plethora of people up and down the card that just naturally connect with you right now. And I think that it's a testament to how good the roster is, but it's also an indictment of how bad creative has been. They have so much talent and that they misuse it so many levels. But that, my friend, is why we cover 205 Live and NXT and not Raw and SmackDown. Because this is the happy hour. This is not the depressed hour.
That is absolutely right. And moving on from this excellent match, we move into the main event of the night. That War Games with this crew, how could it not have been the epic that it was? We saw the Undisputed Era being the smarmy little heels that they always are. They had won the advantage in the NXT prior, so they were doing all the heel things, beating down the faces as they went. I loved Bobby Fish chaining Pete Dunne into the cage at the end there. But come on, like, refs, you didn't have bolt cutters around just in case. Like, that part was a little silly. But
it took an awful long time to go find bolt cutters. It's like they were just going to leave them in there, and they're like, "Oh, maybe we can go back and find something." I'm like, "Move your ass, go!"
I was honestly expecting him to do some crazy bruiserweight like manipulation to the chain and just snap it off of there. But whatever. They finally got Pete Dunne into the match, and some of the insane spots that were in this match. That Tower of Doom off of the side of the cage was probably one of the best spots of that nature that I have ever seen. And that insane double flip off of the top of the cage that Ricochet did, like, holy sweet Jesus, like, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like, we all knew it was coming. We were waiting for it, and dude, did he deliver. And throughout the match, it was great. They had the double teams. You have Hanson and Rowe flying around like cruiserweights, which still, like, I don't know how a guy that size flies around and does high, and not just crossbody blocks, but high crossbody blocks, and some of the other stuff that they do. Then you had, when Pete Dunne finally got down there, then things really heated up, and we introduced all the weapons and the chains and the garbage cans, and Adam Cole getting absolutely crushed inside the garbage can there was a great visual. And I loved actually the ending. Like, we all thought that Undisputed Era was going over. I was a little surprised that the faces won, but I really liked the double pin at the end, because we all know that Pete Dunne and Ricochet have been having their little bit of not on the same page, having their little issues. And I think this plays perfectly into continuing that little feud that they go on. They both can claim that they won the match for their respective team. And it just moves the storyline on actually quite neatly, I think.
They did a wonderful job with this story, telling the story of the match itself and building up the participants in this match, giving them all motivation to be inside War Games. I think that's a tenet of NXT booking that outstrips the main roster booking. And what I mean by that is, on the main roster, when it's October, it's time for Hell in a Cell. And if you don't have a feud that's worthy of Hell in a Cell, well, then go manufacture one. Whereas NXT, they've been building up these 8 men to go at each other at least since August. In some cases, it goes all the way back to April. Like the Roddy Strong turn on Pete Dunne is what put Pete Dunne on the warpath with Undisputed Era. So, you look at the long-term storytelling. They did an excellent job preparing the ground for this match. And quite frankly, are NXT War Game matches the same as the old school War Game matches? No. They're more car crash genre than the brutal street fight slugfest that we used to see in NWA and WCW. That doesn't make them any less entertaining. It just makes them different. And especially in an age when you have such an athletic roster, you put Ricochet and Pete Dunne, the War Raiders, Kyle O'Reilly, Roddy Strong, Bobby Fish, and Adam Cole in 2 rings without a roof, and watch them fly. It's just magical to see what they can do. The spots were incredible. The match itself was pretty good. I thought it was on par with last year's, maybe a smidge better. I definitely liked the 4-on-4 better than the 3-on-3. That is just an absolute. They don't need to do 3-on-3-on-3 in these War Games matches. I think the 4-on-4 or the 5-on-5 is more than adequate, and it's better overall. I think it streamlines things a lot more nicely. I don't like the shark cages still. That's my one real complaint. I wish that they would have another door on the cage on the other side. Just have the two teams go down to ringside like they used to. I don't think the shark cages add much, unless you're doing something like they did here, which is, they've got Pete Dunne locked in the shark cage where he can't get out. But how many times can you do that spot before it becomes repetitive? So I don't know about the shark cages continuing on. But as far as the actual match itself, from the moment Ricochet and Adam Cole got in there, I never personally felt like it drug. Match never dragged any for me. It only built and built. And then when we got to the actual War Games portion of the match beyond, as it used to be called, it really took off. Pete Dunne come in as a house of fire, just destroying anything that moved. And then we were off to the races. So it was a great match, a good car crash. Bodies just thrown everywhere. I second your thoughts on the Tower of Doom spot that they threw in there. Just an overall amazing experience and a satisfying conclusion. You felt like you had gotten your money's worth and then some when this match was over.
Yeah, no, it was good stuff. Definitely, this takeover is worth a rewatch. Or if you haven't seen it, make sure you put this on your viewing schedule. It is worth every minute of your time. If you are a fan of wrestling, there is something in this event for you. You will not be disappointed. That basically, I think, covers it for the takeover. Unless there's anything else that you want to touch on there, Biff.
As far as takeover goes, I mean, we've pretty much lauded all the superlatives we can on it. It's one of the best takeovers they've ever done. It's one of the best takeovers of the year. Does it surpass Brooklyn? I don't know. I am biased. I can't weigh in fairly because I actually went to New Orleans, so I'm naturally predisposed to like New Orleans a lot. But it's up there in the same conversation. It's definitely up there with Philadelphia and Chicago. I'm shocked we didn't get any call-ups onto the main roster. But you know what? That's as much a blessing as it is a disappointment because it means all that talent is still, sitting there in NXT ready to entertain us moving forward. So, it is what it is. Another great takeover special in a running line of them. And now, we get through the holiday season and we turn around in January and we've got the Royal Rumble and NXT Takeover Phoenix. That's going to be a hell of a twosome. That's going to be a lot of fun that weekend. So I look forward to seeing where we go from here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Then on to the other big pay-per-view event of the weekend, Survivor Series. 205 Live really did have its fingerprints pretty much all over this card. You had the Lucha House Party was in on the pre-show. They were part of the tag team elimination match, which it was nice to see them there. I hope it maybe if you're a big Lucha House Party fan, good to see them. That match really was forgettable, and as shown on the main roster, on the main pay-per-view, they did forget about it. Didn't count it as SmackDown's one win for the night, so it was a pretty forgettable match in the overall. Before we talk about the cruiserweight match, I want to get your thoughts on the AOP bar match and what they did with our 205 Live general manager, Drake Maverick.
I'm going to keep my thoughts exceedingly short because if I don't, I'm going to sit here and start cursing up a storm. I hated this. I hated it. I thought it was needless. It was pointless. It was the kind of comedy that WWE tries to do and fails at so often. And if Drake Maverick were just the manager of AOP, it wouldn't be nearly as bad. But he's the GM of 205 Live. And he is a respectable GM. He's done a great job as a GM. Now he's just a goof that pees his pants. And it diminishes his authority on 205 Live, because as much as they try to separate the universes, whereas 205 Live is kind of its own thing, Drake Maverick is quite clearly crossing the boundaries. And so what he does on Raw will affect his image on 205 Live and vice versa. I don't mean to sound like a stick in the mud about it. If you had a difference of opinion, that's cool. I hated it. I didn't like the match in general, and I hated the way they'd finished.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. You just took one of your best GMs and you effectively cut him off at the, well, I guess I shouldn't really say this being with Drake Maverick's height. I was going to say you could just effectively cut him off at the knees, but
oh, that's cold, dude.
And then I realized who I was talking about. But anyhow, you really did. You effectively neutered the man. He can't be taken seriously now. As much as you try to separate the shows, it was a baffling decision. You know what? If they had done that spot with, say, a Leo Rush, you know what? It wouldn't have bothered me nearly as much, because he's just a talent. And honestly, who among us wouldn't say that we wouldn't pee our pants if Big Show truly was lifting us up and choking us against a ring post? But being that you have this man also as an authority figure on another one of your shows, the decision to go that route, I don't know. I found it baffling. I wasn't a fan of it at all. And that's about all I want to say about that.
It was disappointing. It was tremendously disappointing that they did that. But at the same time, can I say that I'm shocked about it? No, I can't say that I'm shocked. So
no, exactly. I agree with you. It's something that a well that they go to once or all too often, and I wish they just kind of get away from some of that kind of humor. There's ways to do humor in wrestling that are effective and worthwhile. That wasn't it. And other than that, we got the Cruiserweight Championship on the main card of a Big Four pay-per-view. When was the last time that this happened? I honestly can't think of it.
Oh, I can't think of it either. I don't know that it's happened in a long time. So
I mean, it was great to see these guys get the time that they got on the main card. The crowd started a little bit dead for this match, but you know what? Buddy Murphy and Mustafa Ali brought it with the time that they were given. They had the chant, the "This is awesome" chant going on at the end of it, and it was a well-deserved chant. This match got just over 12 minutes, I believe, on the main card. So it definitely wasn't one of the longest matches. In fact, I think it was probably the second or third shortest match on the card. But they delivered with the time that they had. It was probably arguably one of the top three best matches on the card. I would put it right up there with the women's match and the Daniel Bryan Brock Lesnar match. As far as pure wrestling goes, it tore the house down, and probably told the smaller man versus the juggernaut story better than even Bryan and Lesnar did, in my opinion. Some great spots. The Spanish fly off the announce table was insane. It just looked brutal. And the finish to that match, that knee off of the crossbody, did that look brutal. The guys took the time that they had, they ran with it, and they did themselves proud. And I couldn't be prouder of my boys. I'm kind of very protective of the 205 Live and NXT guys. So I was glad to see them shine on the main roster.
Yeah, I can't say enough about this match. The best thing that you could do as a pro wrestler is win the crowd over when they're not inherently with you. Like, that wasn't a problem for anything on the NXT card because the crowd was jacked up for everything. This crowd was dead quiet, and Buddy Murphy and Mustafa Ali went out there and through sheer force of willpower won that crowd over. I mean, we got a 205 Live chant. They were working their tails off to get that crowd into that match. I have the utmost respect for both men. That's number one. Number two, Mustafa Ali, thank you so much, sir. You validated everything I said about you last week. You are winning that title, and you're going to be a great champion one day. It's coming for you. You just keep on doing what you're doing. You're going to get there. And to Buddy Murphy, I mean, you, sir, are a star in the making. You have star power all over you, sir. You keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to go far in this company. Vince McMahon, don't think for a second Vince McMahon wasn't paying attention when he saw the crowd start to come around on that match. You can tell when people are working tough. They were working hard to get people into that match. Don't think Vince McMahon doesn't appreciate that effort. He sees that effort, and he sees people that are willing to go that extra mile to grab the proverbial brass ring. And they're going to get rewarded for it. Whether it's renewed focus on 205 Live or whether they've got plans after 205 Live. But you can't understate how important this match was. Because they turned right around and they got that crowd back up, even though the crowd had kind of been down for a lot of the show because of some of the booking decisions. You know, they got the crowd into it. It was a great match. One of the best cruiserweight title matches of the year. I mean, it's kind of like NXT and their takeovers. Trying to choose the best cruiserweight title match in 2018 is like picking between children at this point. But there's so many of them. But you know what? It's in the pantheon. It's one of the best main roster title matches of the year. It's one of the best matches on Survivor Series. I think it's got the main event beat between Bryan and Lesnar. The only match that really gave a run for its money was Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey, which was a different type of match. In terms of pure wrestling, this match easily was the match of the night for me on Sunday. So kudos to them. They did us proud. 205 Live fans have a lot to look forward to with these guys representing the brand going forward to the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I was a little worried. We were talking that this was going to be main card, and then somebody prior to the pay-per-view on Cage Side was pointing out, oh, it was a 2-hour pay-per-view. They have time, or a 2-hour pre-show. They have time to put them on the pre-show. And I started just dreaded everything and thought that they were going to get banished to pre-show hell again. I'm so glad that they didn't. I'm so glad that they shone. Buddy Murphy is, I've said it in the past, he's my personal MVP of 205 Live. Mustafa Ali is right there along with Cedric Alexander. I echo you on those three are the gentlemen of 205 Live. And there's plenty of other amazing talent on that show. You got Hideo Itami, you've got Drew Gulak, you've got TJP, who's just on fire right now with his little antics that are going on. So 205 Live is, I hope that the eyeballs that these guys got on them is going to bring more viewership to 205 Live, because they deserve all the viewers that they could possibly get. We harp on it all the time. It is probably the quickest and funnest hour of programming on WWE right now. Tight storytelling, excellent matches. Even the squash matches that they put on are extremely fun. So I hope that they get the attention that they deserve.
So do I. And, you know, you're sitting there and listening to you talk about all of the talent in 205 Live and all of the prospects we could be seeing in the near future for the brand. I'll tell you what it makes me want to do. When we get into December, it makes me want to have a show dedicated to just making predictions for the year 2019 for NXT and 205 Live. Like who we think will wear championship gold for each brand, or who we think the MVP of the upcoming year will be. Because that, in and of itself, 205 Live and NXT both, and I am including NXT UK in this as well, because I think the roster is strong enough to where it's going to get there soon enough as well. What makes these brands so great to cover is there's so much talent there that it makes you look forward. It almost forces you, by osmosis, to look forward and wonder where they're going next. And that's a sharp contrast between the feeling that I get watching Raw and SmackDown. I'll watch Raw in parts. I generally watch more of a SmackDown than I do Raw these days, but let's use Raw for an example. I watch Raw. I don't care where they're going. I just know that where they're going is probably going to suck, and I want them to change course. I want new stars, new stories. I want a new look. Raw is just so stale to me that I don't care what they do from week to week. I know overall the stories are just going to be blah. I watch 205 Live, and I'm actively thinking in my head, okay, who could Buddy Murphy defend against between now and the Rumble? And who does he got lined up immediately after the Rumble? And how do you get back to Mustafa Ali so that he has a shot to win? Where does Cedric Alexander fit into this? Where does Tony Nese? What if TJP continues to get hot? You still got Hideo Itami there. Is he done with Ali, or are they finished? It's like your mind actively takes you to daydreaming about what could come. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of being a fan of wrestling as a kid and doodling at school about my dream cards that I wanted to see happen. When I should be taking notes in algebra class or, science, whatever. I would sit there and I would just make my fantasy WrestleMania cards or draw the logos and think about, what could be coming down in the future. That is the peak of fandom. When you're not only looking forward to the moment, but you're looking forward to what's next. And you can't wait to get there. I am so excited for NXT Takeover Phoenix. Not because I'm going. Not because I have tickets to the actual event. Not because I know any of the matches that are taking place. Card hadn't even been made yet. They may not even know what they're going to make the card in Phoenix yet. Let's be real here. The card could be anything, but it doesn't matter. I'm excited for it. Why? Because I just sat there Takeover War Games and was blown away. And a couple months ago, I was sitting through NXT Brooklyn 4 and was blown away. Just like I was blown away by NXT Chicago and NXT Takeover New Orleans in the building last spring. It's just, I look forward to these shows. And that's the hallmark of passionate fandom. You're not only focused on what was and what is, but what's to come. And that's what makes 205 Live great. There's so many different ways we could go with it. That's what makes NXT great. There's so many different ways they could go. I'm just along for the ride, and it's a hell of a ride.
Amen, brother. That's about all I could say on that.
I'll get down from my soapbox now.
You don't need to get back down from that soapbox. Preach it to the masses because it needs to be heard, and you're absolutely right. One other little note of business that came out of Survivor Series is that we do have one NXT call-up that it will be going to the main roster at some point. We're not sure which brand he's going to, but the Leviathan, Lars Sullivan, has had a couple of vignettes shown on SmackDown or Survivor Series, on Raw, and on SmackDown, I believe it was shown as well.
Yeah.
So that's a little interesting. I'm not sure where he's going to go or where he would slot in the best. I personally kind of lean towards SmackDown just because they have enough monsters on the Raw side right now. So interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, I found it interesting that they showed the vignettes on both Raw and SmackDown. To kind of leave it open-ended to where he's going. Now, that could be because they don't know themselves, or it could be they're trying to make it open-ended and kind of up the surprise value of it a little bit. But you know what? I was surprised when I saw the news. He wasn't the first choice to come up, I don't think. I was more expecting Aleister Black to be kind of the big name to come up. And maybe he still will be. I don't know. You would think they would have done it in Los Angeles with those crowds if they were going to have a call up like that, but we'll see. But the longer I thought on it, the more I'm okay with it, because Lars Sullivan, he was okay in NXT. He could hang, and he is very good for a big man. He's got a lot of potential, but he's definitely a kind of performer that's more suited for the main roster. I think he's going to do much better on the main roster than he did in NXT, because it's just more compatible with his style. There's more people that can work that style with Lars on the main roster than there is down at NXT. So I think that, overall, this is a net positive for everybody. It clears out a big spot in NXT so that you can bring up some fresh talent, whether it's going to be Matt Riddle taking that spot, or Keith Lee, or ACH, whoever comes in. You've got an open spot now for them. For Lars, it's going to get him more exposure. It's going to put him in a better position to succeed. And it brings fresh talent in for SmackDown or Raw, wherever he ends up going. I tend to think he'll go to SmackDown as well. It wouldn't shock me if he went to Raw, but I think SmackDown's where he'll end up. Either way, I think he'll be a net positive for both shows. So, you know what? Kudos to them. And kudos to him. Congratulations to Lars Sullivan. Know you worked hard for it. You get your shot at stardom, my friend. So, Mazel tov. More power to you.
Absolutely. Now for the $1 million question. Do they hold off till Royal Rumble to put him in, or do you think he makes the appearance before then? I'm thinking of before then, personally, just because, it's really 2 months till Royal Rumble. That's a lot of time to hype somebody and not produce them, and I think that he might just get lost in the shuffle if they do that. So I hope that within the next couple of weeks he makes his debut.
I think it would not surprise me if he debuts maybe like the very 1st of January and just like blows through some people in like squash matches for a couple of weeks. He qualifies for the Rumble, and then the Royal Rumble becomes his coming out party, where he like eliminates 5 or 10 guys and just goes on a rampage in the middle portion of the match, and kind of establishes himself as, someone to watch in 2019. I agree with you completely. I don't think you wait until the Rumble proper, because 2 months is too long. It's just too much time. You would have been best served just having him be a surprise entrant in the Rumble at that point, I think. But also something that we have to remember, and this is kind of the unfortunate aspect of the post-Survivor Series lull that we have. We are entering the creative doldrums of the year. This is historically the point where WWE does their weakest business, and it has their weakest creative. They just kind of stall out, for lack of a better term, between the end of November and the start of January, when they start building up to the Rumble. We saw it this week in spades, with SmackDown and Raw being quite atrocious overall. Didn't like either show much this week, so hopefully we get a better offering next week, but historically I'm not going to count on it. We'll just have to wait and see where Lars winds up going. Maybe he shows up before the TLC pay-per-view. I don't know. But I would definitely say that he will be on TV before the Rumble. At least that's my hope. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, exactly. I guess that pretty much wraps up our show for tonight, unless you have any other thoughts that you want to add on there, Biff.
Well, I'll tell you this much in closing, and I know that we joked about it at the start of the show. But first of all, I just want to wish everyone out there listening a happy Thanksgiving to those that celebrate. If you have a chance to be with family and friends today, take it. You don't know how valuable family and friends are until you don't have them. And so definitely enjoy the time with loved ones. Don't take that for granted. Be safe on the roads. Obviously, it's a travel nightmare for a lot of people. Always rough on the roads there holiday season, so be safe out there. Enjoy yourself. And you know what, Greg, to you, my friend, this day is about giving thanks. And I want to give thanks to you. I mean, you're the best host that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. You're a really great friend. I've had so much fun doing this show with you, and I'm thankful that we get to hang out and talk about NXT and 205 each week. It's one of the highlights of my week, and it makes being a wrestling fan so much fun. So a thank you to you, my good friends, and I look forward to many more shows down the line.
And thanks to you, Biff. I echo those sentiments 100%. Let's do a little bit of some shout-outs and wrap her up.
Sounds good. Of course, we are closing in on the end of our run at YouTube. We'll be joining the LIP family, the Los Ingobernables podcast channel over on Twitch. We'll have more information for you next week as we get prepped for that. We are getting everything kind of set up. It's going to be a great channel. It's just your one-stop shop for everything LIP related. So you'll have all sorts of viewing options during the week. Just a solo source for every good show that we offer in the family. Of course, that includes Two Guys, One Sport with Crazy Chris Colgan and George Curtin Jerker Otsavis. They drop their show, Two Guys, One Sport, Thursday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Of course, the Godfather himself, Taker's Minion, joins Mr. Doc Senju for the Shooting the Breeze podcast. That drops Saturday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, except on the weekends of the Big Four where they do the breakfast roundtables an hour early. They'll be back at the normal time of 11 a.m. on Saturday. Also, of course, the Connoisseurs of Wrestling with myself, George Otsavis, Taker's Minion, and Legends Lover. We coming at you every Monday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. So if you need a break from Raw, we got you covered. Japanese women's wrestling is the theme for this coming week's show. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to our talk on Joshi Puro. Well, it's coming on Monday to kind of close out our celebration of women in wrestling for the month of November. Of course, be on the lookout for Don Sal's show. Don Sal, good friend of the show. Like to throw a little bit of love out to Metal Matt with the Ruthless Aggression Era podcasts. We have both guested on that show. We love ourselves some Metal Matt. And also, just, be sure to join us over at Cage Side Seats. You can generally find both Greg and I there off and on, whether it's the daily thread, generally for Greg, or the nightly thread for me. Come hang out with us. It's a great community over there. A lot of good people, a lot of good discussions. Even if we do drive poor Crash up the wall with the Becky Lynch love right now, you know what? It's a fun place. And a big thank you to everyone over there that listens to the show. Those are our plugs, our contact information, of course, as usual. Down in the info box, you can reach us on Gmail. Our official channel, grounds4development@gmail.com. If you need to email us, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Real Deal Biff. Greg is at GWKlein75. And our show's Twitter, grounds4dev, DEVE1. That's the contacts. That's our shout outs. I think we're ready to take it on home. Turkey Day awaits for no one. And so let's get this show on the road. Greg, take us home, buddy.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to all our American listeners and friends. Save me a drumstick. And may you get the best Black Friday deals tomorrow, and hopefully you get what you want. Have a great day, everyone.
Black Friday, my poor wallet. it's, and I will always love you. And I'm still airing the show. Okay, goodbye, everybody.